just mostly to deaden the pain. In 1992, 93, I made the decision to end my life. And this is the first part of this presentation where we need to understand what goes through the mind of a person who is really struggling with mental health and suicidal thoughts. One of the biggest things is that a person who's struggling with that, the person that is struggling with that will feel like they're a burden to people. And the easiest way to get rid of that burden is to get rid of themselves. And I can remember asking for help. I can remember, telling my friends, hey, I'm having a bad day and I just want somebody to talk to. And the phrase that I hate, the words that came up constantly was, suck it up, buttercup, or have another drink. It'll be okay. Or, you'll get through this, everything will be fine. You're just making a big deal out of nothing. And I wasn't making a big deal out of nothing. So I started planning my suicide or my end of life. And when a person is at that point, it's not a rash decision. Like, a lot of people have this misconception out there that with mental health and suicides, that it's an overnight decision. And mine was over 6 weeks of planning. I wrote my note. I talked to people that I hadn't talked to in a while and kind of gave a goodbye without coming right out and saying it. So it's not a rash decision. And that's one of the things that frustrates me, even in 2020, is that people just think, oh, they just made a quick decision. It's not a quick decision. And there's warning signs there that will help you to understand what they are going through. So anyways, the night that I was on the volunteer fire department at the time, the night that I decided that I was going to end my life was the night that I threw my mother a surprise birthday party, drank quite a bit of Seagram's and 7, which was my dad's favorite drink. And that was one of the first really cool memories I had with my dad, is drinking with him. And how sad is that? But anyways, that night my pager went off, which we found out later through a lot of help with psychiatrists and psychologists. It was actually my low battery, which triggered something. And there's a word that we hear a lot nowadays, triggered. And people will make fun of it on social media. They'll say that it doesn't exist. And unfortunately, even back in 1993, 1994, it existed. And even before that, there are things in our brains and in our psyche that will trigger something to, and it's not always bad triggers. I mean, sometimes you might hear a little kid laugh and it reminds you of a fun time you had with a niece or nephew or something like that. But there's bad triggers too. So anyways, excuse me, when that happened, I took my then current wife home, and the next thing I remember is I'm in the middle of a burning abandoned house. So yes, I actually lit an old abandoned house on fire, and that's how I was going to end my life, which was set up for failure actually right from the beginning, because one of the things I did, as I told you earlier, is I wrote a note with a lot of suicide people that commit or die by suicide. So one of the things they'll do to explain, why, or to apologize, or to be that, or to tell everybody that, now they're no longer a burden. But I put that note on a piece of paper, and then I put it in my pocket, and then I went into a burning building. So nobody would have even known why I did it in the first place. And that's one of the things that people who have had family members or friends die by suicide don't ever get that answer. And then they start blaming themselves. And we'll discuss that a little bit more later as we go along here. So I went next door to the next door neighbor. I pounded on their door. This is like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. Called 911. In the process of that, I responded to the fire with the fire department. And then the next day I was called in to the sheriff's department. And they gave me a choice of basically either going to jail or going to a mental unit, which I chose the second of it because I knew I was having trouble. And I thought, well, here's my opportunity to get some help. After that, I ended up on the front page of the paper, ended up in the city county report, all kinds of other bad publicity stuff that just kind of drove a lot of things that was going on in my head even farther and farther along. Did 9 months in county jail. I paid $10,000 in insurance money back to the insurance company that had the house insured to cover what the loss was. and then did 5 years of community service. And still this whole time trying to get some anger management help, trying to get some ideas of how I could control my PTSD, my bipolarism, and everything else that was going on with me. And at that time, even in 1994, it was an absolute disaster trying to get professional help. And it hasn't gotten any better, to be quite honest, folks. So that's one of the other reasons that I'm doing what I'm doing now, which is my TUGS organization. So in 2013, after I had been asked by Dane County Safe Communities through Casey Langen and his wife to do a presentation on mental health, men and mental health, because God forbid a guy should talk about their feelings. I had done an article for Wisconsin Farm Bureau on a blog, and then Casey and his wife asked me if I would be interested in speaking at this event. And on the way up there, I took my uncle, who's a paranoia schizophrenic, one of my best friends, and my uncle took one of his best friends, and we went up to this guy's night out. And on the way up there, I actually threw my speech away because I hate writing speeches, and I'm not wealthy enough to, have my own speech writer, so I had to do it on my own. But it just didn't click. And I got up there, and I don't know why they called it Guys Night Out, because there was more than just guys there. So I had to take all of my jokes and rewrite them too quickly. But anyways, after they introduced me, I started talking about my Navy career. And one of the things that was unique about our ship is that I was on an ammunition oil replenishment ship, which is the second largest displacement ship next to an aircraft carrier. So we're quite large. And in order for us to go down like the locks and dams, or to even get pushed back safely into port, or to get down treacherous waterways, we had to call a tugboat. And it was kind of interesting because, a tugboat's small and you don't see him, but you can hear his little toot toot. And when we went into port, it was probably the coolest because we would shut the engines down on our ship completely, and we would just be sitting there, and then all of a sudden you just feel yourself move really, really slowly. And then the next thing you know, you feel this little bit of a bump, and you hear them call for the lines out, and they would tie us up to the pier, and then we would find out that we were home safe. And it kind of triggered something in me. There's that word again. Kind of triggered something in me. And on the way home then, I said to Scott, my best friend, I go, dude, I want to start a nonprofit. And of course, he came back with, well, you farm already. How many more do you need? But I wanted a nonprofit that would help people, that would get guys to open up about their feelings, that would be an outlet so that we could have a way to talk about things that were bugging us and not have that suck it up buttercup or have another drink and that kind of mentality out there. And so then later that night, like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, it came to me, and that's how I started TUGS. So what TUGS stands for is talking, understanding, growing, and supporting. If you want to get a lot of gray hair, starting a nonprofit is a good way to do that. But it's been a heck of a ride. We're doing great things, and we'll talk about that a little bit more here too. But our motto is, even big ships need little ships sometimes. And by the end of this conversation or this webinar, you will hopefully have that ability to talk to your friends and your neighbors about mental health, about what's going on in their days. You don't need a PhD or a BS or any of that kind of stuff. I know there's a couple of you on here that are like, well, Bitzenberger, you have a BS behind your name, but it doesn't stand for Bachelor of Science. And that's fine. I'll go along with that. But hopefully it'll give you the tools and the ability to just have the conversation, because honestly, one of the things that my group is very, very adamant about is having the conversation. And you're asking yourself, well, what's the conversation? Well, conversation is just simply reaching out to somebody and saying, hey, are you okay? And I know a bunch of you are probably looking going, that sounds really, really simple. Well, because it is. I was telling Mandy when we were kind of making sure everything would work right for this today, we're in the midst of a pandemic called COVID-19. And I will tell you right now that the panic and the stuff that's going on with COVID-19 is extremely serious. But the pandemic of what it's doing to people's mental health is going to be something that we have never seen. The last few years, we've seen it in our agricultural community amongst our farmers with low milk prices and low beef prices and low commodity prices, and a lot of rain and crops were destroyed because of that and whatnot. And now we're facing that challenge of what about what's going on now? Now, not only is there everything when they saw a little light at the end of the tunnel, but now it's even gotten worse. And on top of it, even though a lot of us in agriculture are kind of used to social distancing and social isolation, there's a lot of factors out there that are constantly grinding on us. Farmers having to dump milk, farmers having to euthanize animals, farmers having to turn their crops under. Myself personally, we've got 300 acres of beans to put in yet, and it's rained for 4 days straight. So there's an added stress with that on top of what's going on with COVID-19. So my question is, first off, how many of you would be willing to have a talk with someone about their mental health and suicide, or even just their mental health for starters? We talk about COVID-19 and how contagious it is, and how you can catch it from droplets, and we've got to wear, we should wear a mask, and we should social distance, and all that other kind of stuff, and that's it's not a bad thing. And then there's a thing out there right now that's called Safer at Home, and I said on Facebook the other night that safer at home is a phrase, not a lifestyle. And I fear that safer at home has given a lot of people this false sense of security that everybody that's at home is now safer. Well, you're safer from catching a virus, but for that kid who's getting emotionally abused, who needed to be at school to get away from that emotional abuse, he's not safer at home. For that person, for that spouse who's getting physically abused and emotionally abused, their workplace was their sanctuary, and now that's gone, and they're not safer, and they don't feel safer at home. For a person like myself who gets inside of their head a lot, who has depression and PTSD and bipolarism and anxiety and all the other bevy of things that go on with me every day, I'm not safer at home. And it's extremely frustrating for me in the capacity that I am. I also deliver water softener salt, and the first week of May was the week that we started delivering salt again, because we shut down in April because of COVID-19. It's really disheartening to walk into 70 and 80 and 90-year-old people's homes and hear that they haven't heard from anybody in almost 2 weeks. This is where one of my biggest things is that we need to be on a daily outlook for our neighbors. And I don't care if they're farmer neighbors, city neighbors, family, friends, whatever the case may be, we need to be looking out for everybody. And also for ourselves. I have the concept behind Tugs is that you find someone who is neutral, that you can trust, that you can talk to about anything. And I know some of you will probably be thinking right now, oh, that's my spouse, or that's my best friend, or that's this person or that person. But what I want you to really understand is that one of the struggles, like even in our agricultural community that they're having right now, is that if you talk to your spouse on the farm with you, even if they have an off the farm income, they're still going through the same challenges that you are. So when you come in and you say, oh, the milk check sucked again, well, guess what? They already know that. They're not going to necessarily have the words that are going to make it any better. The kids are going to be sitting there and they're going to be hearing the same thing with mom and dad saying, oh, how are we going to pay this? How are we going to pay this? How are we going to pay this? And believe it or not, kids pick up on this too. And then all of a sudden their little psyche starts going, oh, well, now I feel like a burden because, mom and dad are paying for this for me, or they're paying for my cell phone, or they're sending me to camp in 6 months, or whatever the case may be, or they're paying for my college education. So it's a vicious cycle of how do we deal with that stuff that goes on in our head every single day. So that's the idea with Tugs, is to find that person who's that small ship when your big ship is struggling. One of the things that I like to do, and this is really, really cool, and if you don't have Snapchat, you can do it with text messaging, because that's how I started doing this actually. But one of the things that I really, really like to do is that every single day on Snapchat, I will send out some kind of a inspirational type saying, whether it be, you're amazing, or, this storm too shall pass, or whatever the case may be. And sometimes I'll even do like my own personal one where I'll videotape myself and I'll be like, hey, you. Yeah, you listening to this right now. You're awesome. Have a great day. And I'll send that out to 20 people. It's actually starting to increase now because there's actually people that want me to send it to them every day, but I'll still send it to 20 random people. And the thing that's really kind of cool and kind of shocking at the same time is I get at least a 50% response rate of, man, I needed to hear that today. Or how did you know that's what was going on? Or oh, I know somebody else that really, really needs to see this today. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm one person sending it to 20 random people. And honestly, on a daily basis now, for total, it's probably closer to 50 and 60. If there's a 50% response rate, I'm going to use 20 because it's an easy number for me and I suck at math. But so if 10 people are replying back to me, just think right now, I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 people on here. So if you guys all sent out to 20 of your friends and say they had 5 friends that needed to hear it, and they sent it to 5 of their friends, and then those 5 friends say, oh, there's people that I know. And we get that cycle started. It does 2 things. One, actually does 3 things. One, it takes your own mental health to a level where you're like, oh, I'm actually helping somebody. Like I did something good today without even really trying to do something good. 2, it makes that person who receives that message, it makes them understand that somebody actually cares. And I will tell you, one of the biggest things that I wanted to know when I went through my suicide attempt and when I go through my depression and all that kind of stuff, the biggest thing I want to know is that someone actually cares, that someone would actually reach out to me and take that time. And I understand that it's 30 seconds or 40 seconds, or if you're like me, you can't type very fast, it might be a minute and a half. But that somebody would take that small amount of time out of 24 hours to reach out to them and see how they're doing. And then you start that little perpetual cycle, or as I like to call it, the ripple effect. You know, you drop a little pebble in the water and it just spreads out. And it sounds simplistic because it is. The mental health pandemic that we have in our country is unbelievable. Calls to the National Suicide Hotline 2 weeks ago had already increased by 895%. 895%. We've already got a crisis where there's not enough mental health workers. We've got a crisis where we're being forced to stay at home. We've got a crisis where we're concerned about what's going on. We've got a crisis where people are saying, you're mean because you don't want to wear a mask and you want other people to die from it. We've got a crisis where people are like, no, we need to do this, we need to do that, we need to do this, we need to do that. And in the process, we're losing that one simple thing that everybody needs, and that's to feel like they're appreciated and that that somebody actually cares. So if the calls to the National Suicide Hotline have increased by 895%, what does that mean to us? Well, that means that we have the ability to change lives. We have the ability to save lives. We have the ability to make somebody's day better just by being good, decent, kind individuals. I love to tell the story of Quick Trip. A few years ago, I used to eat a lot of Glazers, and then I went on a diet, so I don't eat as many now. So if Quick Trip tells you that there's a low supply of Glazers because of me, they're lying. That crisis is over. But I went in one day to get a drink in my Glazer, and there was this gentleman that he was walking around looking at stuff, and I said to him, I said, how's it going? And he goes, why do you care? And what's funny is, like, when we say to somebody, hey, how are you? Or, you know, how are you today? What's going on today? Et cetera, especially people we don't know. It's a common answer. How you doing? Oh, I'm doing good. How are you? Oh, it's a great day. Oh, how are you? I'm fine. So on and so forth. And I said to him, I said, how are you doing? And he goes, why do you care? And I'm like, well, I do. Is everything all right? And he's like, no, actually, I'm having one of the worst days I've ever had. And I said, well, tell me about it. He's like, why do you care? I says, maybe whatever you say, maybe I can help out, or maybe you just need somebody to listen. Like, I'll just listen. Like, I've got time. Tell me what's going on. So he talked about his cat. And what was going on with his cat was that he says, I think my cat's dying. He goes, it does this, and it lacks appetite, and like tries to throw up, and all this other stuff. And I was like, dude, your cat has a hairball. Guarantee it. And he's like, what are you, a veterinarian? And I'm like, no, but I have cats. I've had cats for years. I says, it sounds like he's got a hairball. And he's like, oh, well, what do I need to do for that? And I told him, I said, go to Farm and Fleet or Walmart, get some hairball remedy, follow the instructions, and I think he'll be okay. So a few weeks go by, and I'm in Quick Trip again, get my breakfast, and I'm just about ready to pay, and this hand slams down on the counter next to me, and it's got some money in it, and I hear this voice go, I'll pay for this man's breakfast this morning. And I turn around, and here's Cat Guy. Yes, I call him Cat Guy because I don't know what his name is. And I was like, oh, cool. So anyways, he goes, can we talk outside? And I'm like, sure. So we get outside, and I said, you didn't have to do that. And he says, yeah, actually I did. He says, you remember who I am? And I go, well, yeah, of course I know who you are. I go, how's your cat? And he goes, my cat had a hairball. And I was like, really? He's like, yep. And he says, but what you don't understand is that I just moved here not too long ago. I have no family around here. I haven't made any friends. I came to a job that when I got here, I uprooted my entire life, didn't exist anymore. And my cat is basically the only friend I have that I can talk to and that is around me and stuff. And he goes, I honestly had told myself if my cat died, I was going to die with my cat. Not figuratively, literally. And he goes, and you took the time to talk to me about my cat. And I think about that story all the time because it runs through my mind almost daily, because what if I hadn't talked to that person? Here's a complete stranger, someone who I've never met, that I actually helped out, that I actually reached out to for a simple question of how are you doing? And this is where we ended up at. So my point is that we have people in our lives that we talk to every day. And I tell people on a regular basis, check on your circle and then make that circle just a little bit bigger. Now, that doesn't mean you have to have new friends. That doesn't mean you have to invite them over for dinner or any of that kind of stuff. But check on your circle. Make sure the people that are super close to you, super important to you are okay. Because, we just had a case not too long ago where a doctor who was on the front lines of COVID-19 took her own life in her home with her family there. Check on those people and go just a little bit farther over the gate. Open up the gate, make sure you shut it behind you so the cattle don't get out, but open that gate and check those people on the other side of the fence. And then maybe check just a little bit farther down the road. We're going through a time of what is one of the worst social isolation times that we have had, even from a farmer perspective. I mean, we're can't hardly even see our feed people or the people that sell us machinery or go in and have coffee with our farmer buddies or whatever the case may be. This is the time where we really need to start looking outside of our fences. I started something too locally a while back where I told people, I'm like, make some cookies, unless you're like me and don't bake really good, then maybe just buy some Oreos at the store and grab a thing of milk or some Glazers and go over to your neighbors and have a conversation. And I know that's difficult right now because of what we've got going on, but there's ways that you can do it. And it's important that you do. And you can still practice safety, healthy measures to make sure that this happens. But what was kind of cool about that is that the people that went and visited one of their neighbors suddenly realized that like their farm wasn't quite as nice as what it had been. And so they asked, they're like, is there anything that we can help with? And he's like, well, if you want to mow my lawn, that'd be great. And he was joking. The farmer was joking when he said it. And anyways, the next thing he knows, a couple people come over with mowers. They mowed his lawn. They trimmed around his trees, his house and stuff like that, planted some flowers, did a few little other things. And it took about 2.5 to 3 hours to do all this stuff. 2.5 to 3 hours that it took that made someone's entire year, literally an entire year, that much better. We talk about, well, how can we help with the mental health crisis? How can we help with the mental health crisis? There's not enough psychiatrists, there's not enough psychologists, there's not enough this, there's not enough that. You want to know how you can help with the mental health crisis? These things right here, this thing right here, and these things right here, this thing right here. All of those things are tools that you have that can actually help people in the mental health crisis that we are witnessing in this society. And it's going to get worse, folks. I'm not going to paint a pretty picture. It's going to get worse. We're coming off of a lot of the restrictions and stuff that we've had, but there's going to be, you hear the term new normalcy or the new normal. Well, what exactly is that? Like, what did we have a normal before? So there's going to be all these things that we're all going to be trying to work through at the same time. And we're going to have to be we're going to have to do due diligence to reach out to our friends and neighbors. And not only that, but we're going to have to admit to ourselves when we're not okay. We're going to have to say, I'm not a burden to people. I've got a tug. I can call that person and I can talk to them, and they're not going to BS me. They're not going to sugarcoat it. They're going to do what I say. And I always, when people call me, what I usually do is, what can I do for you? Do you need me to listen? Do you need me to talk back to you? Do you need me to come up with a plan of action? And one of the things that the Department of Agriculture, Trade and Consumer Protection and I just did is that we have inked out a deal, and I'm going to be able to, starting in June, there's going to be some dates set up around the state, and some of it's going to be online, and there's not going to be any charge for it, but I'm going to do what's called QPR. And what QPR is, an easy way to describe it is that it's like CPR for mental health. It gives people the tools to be able to ask the question, are you okay? Are you thinking about harming yourself? That's the question. And then to persuade them that their life is valuable, to persuade them that they are appreciated, persuade them that they have meaning, that there's someone there in their life that matters, that they matter to, that they need to be there for, and then the refer of how to get them to either a psychiatrist or psychologist or a church member or whatever the case may be. So that's going to be coming up, and I would encourage, as those dates get announced and stuff, that if you have the opportunity to attend it, it's a 90-minute session. It's an hour of training with all the things that'll arm you to be basically a good steward of how to help people. And farmers are like that. Like, look what farmers do. It'll be 30 below zero, and they'll strip down to a t-shirt and their bottom of their coveralls to save a calf, or they'll stay up late to put crops in and stuff like that. I mean, our nature is like that already anyways. The other thing that it'll do is it'll give you the resource number. Now, I'm going to put up my business card, and I want everybody to write these numbers down. But the one that's probably the most important, and I want you to put it into your phones, is the National Suicide Hotline. So I'm going to put this up here. Hopefully everybody can read that, and I'll leave it up here for a few seconds here, or take a picture of it with your phone if you want to, or however you want to keep track of that. But I want you to put those, and also the text line, the line that you can text, the Hope line, put that in your phone, so that if you're having a conversation and it gets to the point where you're not comfortable with what's going on, that you want them to be able to talk to someone else, then you've got those resources at your hand, and put them in your phone in a way that you understand them, that you can get to them right away. All right. Hopefully everybody's got those. I'm going to put this down here in just a second. And you know what? If they're not willing to, or if they are willing to call one of those numbers, ask them if they call it right while you're there. Stay with them. Be that friend, be that person that's going to stay with them and help them out, and hold their hand or hug them afterward, or whatever the case may be, or congratulate them on taking a step to help their mental health. Stay there and do that. But make sure you get those numbers in. And if nothing else, program them in their phone also. In my advocacy in mental health, especially since 2013, people will say, well, what if I can't handle it? What do I do if it's really, really bad? What if they've got the gun? What if they've got the pills? There's nothing wrong with dialing 911, folks. I've done it more than once. And I always tell everybody, because I had somebody who I did help this out with. They had called me, told me what was going on. I'm like, you need to dial 911. This is over me. This is over you. This is over. You need to dial 911 and get them safe. And the person that they called 911 on got mad at them, furious, and didn't talk to him for a while. Told them they were a jerk and couldn't believe that they had done this, and so on and so forth. I'll tell you what. Here's the way to handle that. I would much rather have a friend who's mad at me for a few months or maybe a year or whatever, and not have a conversation with them after they get mad at me than to face their family when I didn't do anything and they end up dying at their own hands. The mental health crisis, folks, is real. Mental health challenges are not contagious. And like COVID-19, they're hard not to see, or they're hard to see. But the one great thing with what's going on with the mental health crisis is that we as individuals, we as people, can really make a huge difference by reaching out, by stepping out of our comfort zone, if it be, by asking the question, are you okay? Are you thinking, and you know what, if you got to ask it twice, ask it twice. If you got to ask it 3 times, ask it 3 times. If they finally say, dude, I'm fine, then they're probably okay. But I guess I'd rather annoy them with it. And it's funny because the people that you annoy will still come back and say, hey, thanks for caring, or thanks for helping me out. And the other thing that it does is that it sparks that in them that, hey, I need to check on somebody. People will see me say it on social media all the time. Be kind. It's a simple concept, but be kind. Everybody is fighting a battle every day that you don't know about. The person at Quick Trip could be losing their cat. If you want to make a difference, be the difference. And remember, it's okay to not be okay. And I'll open up for questions now.
Just a reminder for everyone as well, there is the chat feature, the show conversation. If you hover over your screen, there is a little icon that looks like a little chat bubble. You can click that and feel free to type questions into that area as well if you are connecting from a computer and have that ability. Otherwise, unmute yourselves and you will be able to join in on the conversation as well that way.
Also, I'll give everybody my cell phone number if you're not comfortable with asking the questions here, either by the chat feature or on the video itself. But my cell phone number is 608-214-9137. And if you want to email me, the email is tugsgroup, TUGSGROUP @gmail.com. Also, you're welcome to follow my page on Facebook. In order to find it, you have to go in the search bar and put in talking, understanding, growing, and supporting, because for some reason, Facebook would not let me just do it under Tugs. So, but you can email me there too, or message me there also. And if I don't have the answer, by golly, I'll make sure I get you in touch with somebody either from my board that has the answer or somebody else. So, but thank you for those of you that did attend today. I much appreciate it. Then we can make a difference.
So I have a question. I know how you touched on how, it's a struggle for men to sometimes express their feelings. Mm-hmm. So how would you have a guy reach out to another guy? Because I feel as a female reaching out to a guy, it doesn't come across the same way, at least in the situation that I'm seeing. So do you have any recommendations on how to get one of their friends to reach out to them?
Well, I think the first thing you do is get yourself that ally, like someone that that would be good for that person to talk to, and actually have the conversation with them first. And then after that, maybe you need to do a tag team approach. And the reason I say that is because if you have that relationship with that male at this point in time, whether it's brother, uncle, boyfriend, whatever the case, good friend, whatever the case may be, there's strength in numbers. And so maybe there's that, to me anyways, there's that comfortability that, okay, here's one of my people who I'm really close to that's coming to me that maybe sees the problem or is asking me if I have the problem, and they're actually taking the time and the investment into having another one of my friends who's a male come talk to me, you know, and it opens up that avenues. I mean, that's what we've done on a regular basis. You know, I've had quite a few females, and I want everybody to understand before I miss it though, Tugs is not just about men. It's not just about farmers. I mean, we have expanded. We've got board members who, you know, are veterans like myself who'd help with veterans. We have board members who are social service workers. We've got veterans who are former cops or current cops, EMS, et cetera, et cetera. So we're reaching out to everybody because, you know, this isn't just a male problem or just a female problem or just, I mean, mental health affects everybody. But I honestly think that's what my approach would be, is to, you know, talk to one of their friends that, you know, is pretty tight with them. And go in with that mindset though, when you have that conversation, that you're not going to BS them. Like, you have to be able to differentiate between the friendship and the help part of it. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I think I've got a question coming up here on the chat. Let me see. Nope, I guess I don't. Thought I did, but I don't.
So Jeff, this is Wes Raditz.
Hey, Wes.
Just wondered, you know, what do you suggest if you're reaching out to somebody just to do that, say hi, and see how they're doing. Maybe somebody had an auction or something, and you just, you know, and you know, they don't answer their phone. You leave a voice message, but they don't return it. How persistent maybe should you be, or should you be persistent, or just kind of let it go?
Nope. So here's my rule of thumb, Wes. Phone call and a text message. And usually what I'll do is I'll send because the actual voice conversations, Wes and everybody else on this, the voice conversations are very, very important, because a lot of times we hear inflections and in a different tone that will send some signs to us that, okay, this person is struggling or something's not quite right. So that's very, very important. But so usually what I do, if I think of somebody's struggling, I always call first. That is my first thing, is I'll send them and then a text message right after. Hey, left you a message, just wanted to chat, see how you were doing. And then I wait 12 hours and then send them another one. Hey, still, you know, not trying to be, I know you're busy, you know, blah, 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 but at least send me something that, you know, what's going on, if you're okay, whatever the case may be. And then 24 hours after that, if it's somebody that you can drive to, and I understand again that we're under some different times, but if it's somebody you can drive to and have a conversation through the window, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. But honestly, Wes, I don't ever think that you can be too persistent. I really don't. If you are too persistent, they'll let you know that you're too persistent, and you'll pick up on it, especially if it's someone that you know well, because you're going to see the you know, if it's somebody that you can normally have a candid conversation with and they're not returning that call right away and stuff, you know, you're going to start picking up on things. And 9 times out of 10, that person is either going to reveal to you what's going on, or they're going to be like, no, Wes, everything's fine. I'm just really, really super busy. Sorry, I didn't get back to you. And if a person does that kind of stuff, then I will usually move on with my day. If they're just like, yeah, whatever, you know, I got some things going on, you know, listen to that. And that's the one thing that I really have to stress. And I know Alyssa Grenewald's listening to this, and she's probably going to roll her eyes, but you really, really, really have to listen. Like, you have to take in account. And that's one of the things that was super hard for me. I used to be that guy that would listen to answer, and now I listen to listen. And you have to do that. You have to listen for those inflections in their voice. You have to listen to their sentencing, because you'll pick up on things like that. So again, Wes, to answer your question, I don't think you can be too persistent. And if you are, and they're not going through a mental health crisis, they will definitely let you know. If you think something is amiss, then keep on it. But just, you know, be nice about it. Don't be like, dude, are you ever going to call me back? You know, you don't want to be like that. But just, you know, hey, I'm kind of concerned. I haven't heard from you. Can you just reach out? and they'll do that. And so that's my answer to that question.
Are there any other questions for Jeff this afternoon?
It's really weird being in an empty room and not being able to see people's faces because I don't know if they all fell asleep or not.
All right. Well, not hearing any further questions, I think we will, especially in consideration of time here for everyone, wrap things up. We're getting some comments. They're not sleeping, so people are listening, and I'm glad that they are. Jeff, I think you did a really great job today, just kind of summarizing. And, you know, one of the notes I jotted down just as, you know, one of the simplest things we can do is just make an effort and make time to reach out to people and make sure that we're listening to them as well. So I know I personally really liked your comment of just take time to send a few text messages or Snapchats. That's really quick and simple. Just letting people know you're thinking about them. It's a really easy way that all of us could take a minute of our day to reach out and let others know that we are thinking of them and that we do care about them. So if anybody has additional questions after this, Jeff did share his contact information. I can list some of those resources as well. We have a Facebook event page set up, so that'll be available. And then we will be continuing with some additional sessions throughout the coming weeks as well. So just keep an eye out for those too.
And also, I would encourage you too, as the Department of Agricultural Trade and Consumer Protection and I start announcing dates. There's going to be, I think it's 5, maybe it's 6. I know there's one in Madison, which will be at the end of June. There's going to be one in Eau Claire. There's going to be one in Wausau. There's going to be one in Green Bay. I think Dodgeville. But again, our goal is to also have people to be able, or have the ability for people to be able to sign in and actually watch those remotely. But if you do that, please pay attention. There's going to be a lot of information that'll come out of that. Class itself is 60 minutes, and then we'll do a little bit of some question answer plus some role play situations after that. So I would encourage you that if you get the opportunity to attend that, either in person as the dates come out or online. It's a really good resource. I'm not trying to blow smoke up my own, but it's pretty interesting.
All right, let's everybody send another thank you here to Jeff for taking time to talk with us today. I see lots of thank yous in the chat session here for those connecting that way as well. And again, thanks to all of you for taking time to be with us this afternoon. And we hope you tune in again next week for our next topic.